All right, let's. I'm going to call back into this phone system in a minute. We'll take a few phone calls, but I want to start to trash Joe Biden. Let's go from the petty to the substantive, but petty first. Joe Biden was talking. Who was this with? What was this on?
It was CBS.
Was this CBS? But this
it
was
in
very
the 2008.
Oh, this is in 2008. Okay, so this is him as Barack Obama's vice presidential candidate. This is going to be a really interesting. I mean, you can't criticize Joe Biden from the 1970s until 2007. Some of the critiques of him are going to have to involve, I think, an honest accounting with the bad aspects of the Obama administration. But this was just funny.
The six-term senator.
Part of what a leader does is to instill confidence, is demonstrate that he or she knows what they're talking about and communicates to people. If you listen to me and follow what I'm suggesting, we can fix this.
Remember that.
Yes. Remember, this
when the stock market crashed, Franklin Roosevelt got on television and didn't just talk about the princes of greed. He said, look, here's what happened.
Okay, Matt, as our resident historian, can you give us the two facts? Well, first of all, what did Joe Biden say again about needing to know your brief?
It says demonstrate that he or she knows what they're talking about and communicates to people. If you listen to me and follow what I'm suggesting, we can fix this.
Okay.
So then he says,
when the stock market crashed, Franklin Roosevelt got on television.
So when the stock market crashed in 1929, Franklin Roosevelt was still 4 years out from being in the White House.
Okay, so that's number one.
Television and didn't just talk about Franklin Roosevelt got on television.
And he famously was about the radio, and television would be a bit anachronistic.
Maybe a little bit pre. Television not coming until like the 50s.
It'd be tough to pull off the whole, I'm not going to let people know I have polio and I'm wheelchair bound.
Right.
That was much easier on the radio than it would have been on television.
Indeed. So that was just us being petty. There's literally nothing more to that other than he said you got to know what you're talking about before.
I know.
Getting.
I know.
He really is such a funny.
Biden is what America needs right now.
I mean,
he has the power to unify the country.
Yes.
Imagine if you're Donald Trump. You're like, if I said something that's stupid, you'd be
everybody
all over
would
me.
talk about it for days.
But
Meanwhile,
he's right.
I'm exactly right. And the autocorrect doesn't show up.
Yeah,
and,
I'm trying to spell coffee. It says coffee. I'm just like, the autocorrect will get that.
Autocorrect, because I believe in our great beloved technology companies. But meanwhile, Joe can say that FDR wheeled himself out in front of NBC News when he was president in the 1920s.
And said, good night and good luck.
Said, good night, good luck. It's totally unfair. Totally unfair. Can you bring the phone down? Because I'm going to call in while we play this clip. Okay, this is more relevant. Glenn Greenwald flagged this. And I have to say, look, regardless of what you think of Russia, this is a correct point. Wouldn't it be ironic if Democrats, after spending 3 years indignantly protesting, quote unquote, meddling, and as I say, look, you could put it in or outside of quotation marks, the point still stands, by foreign countries in our internal affairs, ended up marching behind a person who said this in 2002 about why he supports Bush and Cheney's removing Iraq's government.
Considered in the context of the president's speech this week and his address last month to the United Nations General Assembly, this resolution, though still imperfect, deserves our support, and let me explain why. First, the objective is more clearly and carefully stated. The objective is to compel Iraq to destroy its illegal weapons of mass destruction and its programs to develop and produce missiles and more of those weapons. President Bush did not lash out precipitously at Iraq after 9/11. He did not snub the UN or our allies. He did not dismiss new inspection regimes. He did not ignore Congress. At each pivotal moment, he has chosen a course of moderation and deliberation, and I believe he will continue to do so. At least that is my fervent hope. I wish he would turn down the rhetorical excess in some cases, because I think it undercuts the decision he ends up making. But in each case, in my view, he has made the right, rational, and calm, deliberate decision.
Anna?
That was a devastating clip, and it's even more devastating because Glenn Greenwald tweeted that today when there was news of how well Biden is polling.
Right.
And so I see us making the same mistakes as a country, and it's terrifying. And same mistakes if you look at our country's history, but even if you just go back to 2016, I mean, you see the media propping him up the same way that they propped Hillary Clinton up. You see the media going after anti-establishment candidates very similar to how they went after anti-establishment candidates in 2016. And so when I watched that clip and saw his misguided support for a war that has been a complete and utter disaster, I just thought of how likely it is someone like Trump will get reelected if Biden is the nominee.
So I agree with you totally on the merits, 100%. And I just also want to say, to me, and in general, I don't say this about most anything because I agree with you. I think people have, not only should they have a right and the ability to evolve and change from anything, right? Like I am a firm believer in that. I don't like, cancel culture in general. I would say, and part of the reason I draw these sharp distinctions is I think occasionally there are things that are demarcation points. And I think the invasion of Iraq is as close to a demarcation point as you can have. And it wasn't just that he supported this mass atrocity. He got all of the fundamental calls of that wrong, right? Like there's the most fundamental call of the vote. Not only was George W. Bush, the overt goal of people like John Bolton was to destroy the UN process. Dick Cheney literally undermined Tony Blair's attempt for the fig leaf of a second UN resolution just specifically to undermine the UN.
Right.
That's ridiculous. And the guy's still going to brand himself as a foreign policy expert. If you look at his record in Afghanistan, he's painted as a dove, but he was a huge advocate of more special forces and drones.
Right.
His foreign policy record's appalling.
It is. It
Yes.
is. And even though it's appalling, he will use his foreign policy record as his strength, and he will do it successfully because the mainstream media
Yes.
will back him. And they will attack Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren for being weak on foreign policy. And look, to be fair, foreign policy is not their strong suit, right? Bernie Sanders is pretty honest about that, but given the fact that it's not his strong suit, he has the right position on Venezuela. And so I'm very curious to see what Biden's position on Venezuela is.
Biden's position will be trash. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.